Great. Well, welcome everyone. İyi akşamlar. Good evening. First of all, thank you for joining, and I know people will start trickling in. If you can, just at least until we get to the Q&A, if you could mute yourselves just in case as we speak. For Erim and I, at least. Erim, you don't have to mute yourself. But yeah, so I am so happy to, this is, first of all, I should introduce myself. My name is Lawrence Cenk Laws. I am the president of the TAP initiative, the Turkish American Professionals Initiative. Just a quick intro about TAP. This was this was born out of to fill the vacuum of TCA. I was the former program director of TCA right before it had to close down, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. But we wanted to kind of keep the spirit alive of TCA, the Turkish Coalition of America, and with respect to getting, especially the younger folks, the young Turkish American professionals, whether in college, master's or PhD, and kind of early to mid-career level professionals, to kind of get them connected, especially just all across the country. We are obviously a little bit more primarily based out of DC at the moment, but we are trying to do some, hopefully the hope is to have chapters in the major metropolitan, the Turkish population areas in the country, and so I'm so excited about this event because I've known the speaker at least since college. We went to undergrad together at Georgetown, so I'm very happy to introduce him. Just a little bit about Erim. He's a candidate for General Sessions Criminal Court Judge Division 10, countywide on August 4th, 2022. He is a dedicated public servant who believes in smart criminal justice reform and is needed in the way domestic violence cases are handled in Shelby County. He is currently running for a position that hears about 150 exclusively domestic violence cases from across the county, in the span of 3 hours every morning. So that's why you couldn't talk this morning now, I see. A lifelong Memphian, originally from Turkey, Erim Sarinoglu grew up in Germantown and graduated high school summa cum laude from Memphis University School. He started his career after graduating Georgetown University School of Foreign Service with me as a fellow Hoya. He represented clients in the halls of government where he fought for improved benefits for our soldiers, defeating job-killing red tape in a robust American space industry. He served with the United States Legal Mission investigating war crimes in Cambodia. He was also top of his class in trial advocacy at Tulane Law School and advised on contracting, internal compliance, and enterprise formations for business clients during his clerkships there at law school. He is running for judge because a new generation of experience and ethical and energized judges are needed to begin smart reform of the way domestic violence cases have been handled in the criminal justice system. Outside of his law practice, Erim is married to Selden Hemfi Sarinoglu and is expecting, this is different, that he just a new father. When was Aydin born?
Right, April 29th, we welcomed Hall Aydin Sarinoglu into the world. And so earlier than expected. So thank you very much. My first son, so first child. So thank you very much.
Terrific letter. And so, yes, I don't want to, extensive resume. And I just wanted to, again, thank you, Erim, for coming here. And I want you to obviously kind of introduce yourself. I didn't want to go too much into the bio that you had, and so I hope that. But again, I hope everyone enjoys this. And off to you, Erim.
Sure, and just to introduce myself and my Turkish connection, I was actually born in Bornova, Izmir. My family from both sides are from Nazilli, so we are very much sort of Aegean people. I immigrated to Memphis when I was 3 years old because my father is a doctor. My mother and father are both EGATIP graduates. And we came to Memphis, Tennessee for the University of Tennessee Med School. And so that's why Memphis. I moved here when I was 3 years old. I've gone through high school here as a local. Every summer, I would go back to Kuşadası in Turkey to keep my language and my family connection fresh. And ever since, graduated from Georgetown with Lawrence. And then I went to Tulane Law School. And a slight correction, I actually served with the United Nations Legal Mission in Cambodia on the ECCC War Crimes Tribunal, which is what interested me in criminal law in the beginning. And so now I serve as an assistant public defender here in Memphis, Shelby County, as we call it, Memphis, Tennessee. You might know from the news that Memphis is among the most violent and troubled cities in the nation. We have lots of work here, and lots of justice and injustices are committed daily in our courtrooms and outside. And, it is an honor to represent each and every person and individual against the might of the government, is the way I look at it. However, I'm not ideological in that way. It's my honor to dignify each person with a defense. And what I've been more successful here is I do a lot of forensic science work. I do cases everything from murder in the first degree to DUI, sex crimes, drugs. I do the whole 9 yards. I'm a trial attorney. I'm one of maybe 9 or 10 living attorneys in Memphis, Tennessee to have ever acquitted a sex crimes allegation on a child, for example. But I do all sorts of cases from drug trafficking to street land murder to domestic violence murder, all kinds. My specialities are in the forensic sciences and how they apply to law. And that I draw from my experience, of course, at Georgetown. They trained us well in the connection of science and politics and public policy. And before I go on and on, I was honored last year as among the best of the bar, among the best 14 attorneys here in Memphis, Tennessee. And on the back of that, I've decided to run for judge. We've been honored by the endorsement of our city mayor, Mayor Strickland, as well. And we're standing for smart criminal justice reform for the way domestic violence cases are treated in Shelby County. And I can talk about that in detail later. But in a nutshell, I'm a first generation immigrant. I'm that next generation where my parents came to the country, and I'm of that generation where we're just assimilating well. And now we are in that role of public servants for the community here. My brother is also here in Memphis, Tennessee with me, Erim Sarinoglu. I'm very honored to have him too. And so it's just the two of us here in Memphis now. My parents are retired back to Turkey. My father is still a doctor in Forest City, Arkansas, OBGYN there. But I'm delighted to join all of you today. It's nice to meet you. And I really am looking forward to participating in all of the Turkish American organizations going forward.
Thank you so much, Erim. And I keep forgetting how connected you are to Izmir. I'm also my mom's side is from Izmir, so it's always
Well, I must actually rephrase. I'm actually from Karşıyaka. But
that's funny. Well, it's as long as it's still Izmir, it's still better than Istanbul, right? But that's great. And I didn't know about your father being OBGYN. I was like, I'm sure he had a lot of helpful tips and had a lot of input during the process. Right?
Oh, he sure did. He sure did. And I can even tell you also my immigration story. We came to Memphis, Tennessee for my father to finish medical school in University of Tennessee Med School. When he graduated, the Department of Agriculture approached him, said, if you work in this small town, Forest City, Arkansas, for 5 years, we will give you and your family citizenship in a medically underserved area program. And we've been there now for 26 years. And so my father is the only OBGYN in the whole area, delivers 50 babies a month. I kiss babies at the Walmart when people see my last name. And so it's a very small town, so small that just a few years ago, 15,000 people, my dad was made an honorary sheriff's deputy just because he had delivered all the babies in town practically.
Wow.
This is that sort of Southern immigration story that I've gotten to live.
That's great. And yeah, so I just, I wanted to kind of ask a couple of just pointed questions, maybe just to
Sure.
just to kind of rope what rope why we're here too. I mean, one is I just I guess first is like what has it been like running for office as a Turkish American, first of all?
First of all, I need to describe how Memphis, Tennessee is not a very cosmopolitan place, but it's not to our discredit in any way. It's just about the economic activity coming in and out. And it's not like a New York or a New Jersey or a Houston or Atlanta, where many foreign immigrants are coming and going. So the biggest challenge for me hasn't been my label as a Turkish American, actually. It's been more that I've been had to correct people that I am an immigrant American and not so much a foreigner. That's been the most difficult challenge, I think, when it comes to Turkish Americanness. I have spoken with other members of the Turkish American PACs, and they describe, political committees and action groups in their state, such as New Jersey or New York, that's rather ethnically split among Greeks or Armenians or Turks or things like that. Here, we don't have such a diversity to actually discriminate against each other in that way. My biggest challenge, however, I temper that. I've been able to counteract this weight as being labeled a foreigner, I would say, with genuine personal networks. And these are those personal networks that I've cultivated lifelong, of course, that we all cultivate without even knowing. It's those networks that give you authenticity to those that you're speaking of in the community. For example, when I go around and I get oh, well, aren't you a foreigner sort of joke, I come right back and say, you know what, I am an immigrant. However, I went to this school with your sons and this school with that. And those are participated in these activities. Those are the commonalities that connect people. And that's what we need to focus on. There's that old saying about friendships aren't actually about shared interest. They're about shared activities. And those activities are what build empathy and trust among people. And so whenever I'm confronted with not confronted, but challenged with a constituent who says, well, you're a foreigner, welcome to Memphis. I say, we have diversity of experiences, opinions that would enrich our public service environment here in Memphis. Not so much, a labeling of foreigner or not. I think that's been my biggest challenge here in the South. I know in other areas, people would be more specific about my Turkishness, but frankly, they don't know what Sarinoglu is even Turkish. I will say, though, on all of our campaign materials, what's been very effective is we have sounded out phonetically Sarinoglu. And just that pronunciation and that comfort of being able to pronounce it has really connected with people who have been maybe a little bit more cautious of our campaign.
Mm. And you mentioned kind of almost like shared activities, but I also want to kind of ask, well, I guess so separately. One is, let's talk about just one is, how has, especially with your life and your career, like you're having this kind of binational experience, right? How has that kind of influenced your life, your career path? I guess in general, how has your being, your work in Cambodia as well, to kind of having that international perspective and then coming and bringing that to good old Tennessee, like how has that been?
And to give a full picture of it, I must admit, when I was a young boy growing up here in Memphis, Tennessee, my dream was to leave and see the world. I knew, that there were many other more cosmopolitan areas to go see. However, with time and experience, having gotten to see much of the world now, I now appreciate the value of creating a network where you are. The proximity that you have to people is just as valuable as anything else. And that brings the authenticity to call yourself, a Memphian. Though I will say, my career in public, I have experience in international public law, and that's what inspired me to be a public defender. When I was in Cambodia, I got to see the Olympics of criminal law, as I put it. I was one of 3 Americans on a team of 50 attorneys. There were Italians, Germans, Belgians, it was a true Olympiad of criminal work, defense and prosecution. And I think that's what inspired me to think of the domestic work in an international lens. Because the way I think about it, I consider myself a constitutional lawyer as a public defender. But really what that means is that I'm a human rights attorney. I have to stand up for the human rights granted by our Constitution for each and every defendant. And I think that's how I've been able to incorporate my international experience with what I'm doing now. I will also say, having seen other legal systems in Cambodia, we worked under a civil law structure, a French style criminal justice structure, hybrid as well. Seeing the possibilities of how a court structure could work is also extremely useful when you're trying to reform. Because if you are unaware of other possible ways to skin the cat, as they say, or accomplish the same thing, then you lack a certain imagination about how to solve your current domestic issue with maybe an international analog that could work. I've been very lucky in that regard. And I must say, Lawrence, a big part of my luck in getting into international public law, even for that brief period, was the label of Georgetown. I have to give Georgetown the credit where it's due, because that label alone is what opened the door for an interview, and that opened the door for more and more. And so, labels are important, and you should use and leverage your labels to the maximum, because that's why you fought so hard to earn them. I just would stress that to folks, and I stress that to my younger colleagues and mentees now. Don't be shy about being proud of your accomplishments. That's what I would say.
Thank you. I think you have answered another one of my questions already, but I think one I want to I guess just because one is the part of this is like we're trying to take away the mystique of running for office, if it's that something and I'm glad to hear that you that it helped what your education and where you came from, and kind of the connections you built, especially in your formative years, right, in undergrad and law school. But we should still talk about the challenges. So what is a challenge? Can you what were the challenges you faced in your career, and how, or not only your challenges in your career, but as you've kind of walked this campaign trail now? How has that been?
The biggest challenge of my career, I think, was when I moved back to Memphis, Tennessee. And when I first moved back, I had just graduated law school. I had just passed the bar exam, but I was a stranger in my hometown. I had spent 5, 6 years in Washington, D.C. Then I went down to New Orleans for Tulane Law School. And when I came back to my hometown of Memphis, it was a little bit strange not to have that network that I thought I was so plugged into available. It's because you really do have to cultivate and recreate your own network every city you live in. I think this is particularly interesting for our generation and time, because young professionals, I used to sit on a local museum board here in Memphis, a Fine Arts Museum, Dixon Gallery and Gardens. And we studied that most young professionals that we targeted for inclusion in our museum programs, for example, would not be in Memphis in 2 years' time. And that's a fascinating statistic, that as a generation, we move cities so often. And I think that's what's so difficult in cultivating your network, because if you have to reset your network every few years, it's extremely difficult to get the authenticity when you're trying to switch your personal network into a political network. And that's another piece of advice that I would give to people. My current I'm a first-time candidate. I joke, I'm going to need the whole runway for this plane to take off, but we're doing quite well. I shouldn't say that. But But I only say that in that these personal networks, I coach my old high school's mock trial team. I'm involved in an art gallery, for example. Those were the initial networks that I converted to political networks. And then those organically grew into further networks. I don't believe that there's really a divide between your personal networks and your political networks. They're one and the same. They're these human sociological maps, And I don't believe that as often as candidates, we focus too much on whatever party is throwing what event, the Democrats or the Republicans or some sort of activist cause, when not all politics is about activism. A lot of it is really about being known in your community. And that's very difficult, especially as a young professional, to be known in your community. So my biggest piece of advice on that would be that don't shortchange or don't take seriously your personal networks in activities you think are unrelated to politics, because those individuals in those networks will be there to help you later on with your interests. Like I said, I coached the mock trial team in my high school. Just through knowing judges there, I now have earned some endorsements. Just through the parents of the children that I've coached, I have earned endorsements. I think doing good work wherever you are and being true and an honest person is always essential, regardless of whatever you're doing. Because that authenticity, I keep saying the word authenticity, but purposefully, that authenticity translates to your brand, as we are often taught in school nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
That brand is really what lawyers call your reputation, and that is priceless. And so I don't mean to pressurize every situation you're ever in. Don't. Relax, be yourself. But be mindful that not all things are fun and games. You do have to keep up your reputation, because one day that private network will be your professional network.
Thank you, Erim. And before I give it out to the audience, I just want to give you one chance to just share. Do you have a funny moment that happened during or interesting moment in the campaign trail that you just never expected to happen? Like anything that kind of shocked you in a maybe good or bad way? I don't know.
I think what I'm most surprised about in the campaign is the speed at which people will support you. And I think this actually is about how, as humans, we want to trust someone else or whomever we speak to. If we can gauge that they're credible and that they speak content, and I think that's key, not just spin and empty words. We are constantly barraged by spin in politics. No real content to your reform, no real explanation as to what your concrete steps are. What I've noticed on the campaign trail is when people say, oh, you're awfully young to be running for judge, for example, I say, that's true. But let me show you these old historic judges who were elected younger than I, who achieved these reforms. And these are the reforms we have in plan. I think it's been a breath of fresh air that content is valuable on the campaign trail. I think getting your ideas together in an organized and intellectual way is not gone. It's actually the core of why we're in the political process. So it's not that funny of a story, I suspect, but I thought it was much more about spin, and I'm glad that it's not, because there is, content involved, and I'm honored that we're running a campaign of content, not just ego, because many local politicians are campaigns of ego. That's what I'm learning. So, but now it's recorded. I can't give any further comments, but now it's recorded.
Thank you so much, Erim, first of all, for allowing me to ask my questions. So, but I wanted to give it to the audience. Demir first. I see.
Well, thank you for inviting me to this presentation. I'll just tell you one historical joke. When British Prime Minister Disraeli was running for Prime Minister, he was blamed for being too young. And his answer was, I'm glad that's my only shortcoming because it's improving every year.
That's really good. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to steal that.
Okay, now going to the subject. As the Turkish PAC, we established Turkish PAC in 2006, and we have been working on this on and off. Right now, I can't say we are at a high point, but we're working very diligently trying to help Turkish people and our causes. We also have a parallel non-political organization called Turkish Heritage Anti-Defamation Society, where we are fighting defamations. As you know, most of Turkish being Muslim and coming from the East, there's an image here, and there are some quite a number of minorities here. Most active Armenians, Greeks, Kurdish, etc., who do all kinds of things to make Turkey look bad and defame. And that is truly impacting the relations between the United States and Turkey with all these airplane deals and all those things. So, so we're trying to help that. So that's Manao. And we're just right now preparing to sue the Los Angeles United School District for hate crime against Turkish people because they declared April 24th as the Armenian Genocide Training Day. Armenians are very heavily in Los Angeles, and they want to declare. They actually declared April 24th as the Armenian Genocide Training Day. So we got a very good lawyer, an American lawyer who's chasing this case. And he advised us to go slow and wait for them to really exercise that day and then really sue them. But we sent them some letters, etc. So as I can say, that hate crimes against Turks is one of our main goals. But there are other things, American issues, American minority issues, and Turkish-American relations we are involved with. So we would like to help you because you're of Turkish origin, but could you tell us what you're trying to do for America? If there are things you're trying to do for Turkey, and how you will be able to support our goals.
Well, I suspect that my answer is going to not satisfy you. And that's because as a judicial candidate, I am governed by the judicial canon to not take a public policy position on such questions. And so, especially in a forum like this, I am unable to comment about how or if I could help in a bilateral situation or on a specific policy point, such as the Armenian genocide that you'd mentioned. I cannot comment on the specific policy points, but I will say this, especially for a community like Memphis, Tennessee, and Shelby County, where I hope to serve in domestic violence court, where we hear 150 cases in 3 hours every morning. But before I get too micro into those concerns, I think the bilateral relationship between America and the United States is only solvable with familiarity. And those familiarity touch points are things such as knowing a Turkish person, knowing a Turkish family or a Turkish public official. I'm honored that I would be the first, not just Turkish American in Tennessee if I were ever elected, but also the first, as we know, immigrant American elected to the judgeship or bench here in Tennessee. I think it's not alone a struggle of Turks in America. And I don't want to expand it too far beyond your question, but I do believe that I think a lot of the current animosity that we see out in our society isn't just about our national origins. It's the fact of, are we truly authentic Americans? Some constituents will even ask us directly. I think that's really the fear, because otherwise it would be to incite, dare I say, ethnic issues or inject ethnic issues into a forum that isn't truly designed to address that, is actually designed to ignore your ethnic background. However, in situations like you point out with your lawsuit against the Los Angeles school district, as you mentioned, these sort of ethnic issues are percolating to the surface on many different fronts and forums and states. In many ways, I cannot answer your question about how I could help you or support a different policy position. But what I can answer is, when we talk about representation and seeing people like us on TV shows or powers or positions of power, I think that's what I could accomplish from a judicial bench. Now, if I were running for Congress or State House or anything else, I could have answered your question fully and in a different way. But I'm sorry to say, I just cannot. As a judicial officer, I must remain impartial to any and all policy considerations. And that is a duty that's beyond my personal opinions. It's a duty I have to lawyers and judges and citizens who came before me and who will come before my courtroom when and if we win. And so I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I cannot answer your question as a judicial candidate.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not disappointed because we got the same answer from Judge Karan, but we supported him anyway, and he is very supportive of Turkish causes and our community, and we love that. As far as you're getting elected, I'll be living in Houston to our summer home in Bodrum. We have a summer home just like you.
Travel safe.
On the 9th of June, so I don't have much time here.
I
Do
see.
you have a fundraising letter with account names and how to send you contributions?
Yes.
And if you have such a thing, could you please email it to me? I have an email list of about 800 Turkish people, and some of them contribute to elections. I can send it to them. And if you say things that they will make them happy and conscious, they may contribute, because talk about your Turkish roots, etc. They like that. But you have to do it very rapidly. If it's ready, send it to me. You
We're
got my
ready.
email. You got my email address.
I don't, but Demir Bey, I'm sure I can find it.
I think I have it.
You do, Lawrence? I'll get that from you. But what
Yes.
I'd like to say is the way we've streamlined our contributions is through our website. And because no one would be able to spell Sarinoglu here in Shelby County, our website is voteshelbycountijudge.com.
Yes.
Voteshelbycountijudge.com.
Well, put this on your letter so that
Yes.
they can click it on your letter and go there. And I hope there's another clickable thing, say contributions there. Okay.
Yes, indeed.
That's all I need. Then I'll write a letter of introduction and send it to all these folks. Don't get over hopeful, because our guys do not, their hands unfortunately do not go their pockets. I mean, they buy expensive cars, expensive homes, expensive vacations, but if they contribute $100 to your contribution, to you're getting heavily contributed. I just warn you.
That's
But I would like to help you before I go. So please send this letter in reference to your website, as soon as you can.
I
Okay?
will, Demir Bey, I will. And I will also mention this. I've been honored as a first-time candidate to have had great success in fundraising. We have actually raised 5 times more than our next opponent. We've
Very good.
raised the most of any other judicial candidate in the whole county
Very
for any other position. So on paper, we have a very strong campaign. We have professional structure. And I've also been able to recruit some of my most trusted members when I too had worked for Congressman Cohen. Congressman Cohen is the Memphis Democrat who is our congressman, Tennessee District 9. He's a great ally of Turkey as well. And
Yes,
he's
we
on,
support Cohen heavily.
yes. And so myself and my wife Selden have both worked for Congressman Cohen, though I must say I am a centrist. I am a nonpartisan candidate in this race. I have to say that. But Demir Bey, we would be honored for your help in circulating our message and
Yes.
trying to help us raise more funds. Our challengers are serious. We have opponents to our left and our right, and we're the one bipartisanly supported campaign in this nonpartisan race. But I did want to give you that update as to our strength in fundraising, and we appreciate any cent donated to us.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I hope Tennessee, being kind of a rural place, I don't think this ethnic stir-ups have entered there as much. Texas was like that, but now they're here. So I hope you won't get attacked by guys like that, because immediately if they hear you're getting near success, you get a lot of attack. Okay?
That's what I'm learning.
So yes. How old are you?
I'm 33 years old. I'm very young, but I will say I've been the youngest at everything I've ever done. And so, but that's not a qualification. It's just we do hard work and we try to do the best we can. And so
I am 82. I have a son who's 44. He runs his own hedge fund in Chicago.
you must be very proud.
Yes, all my children are self-standing. They don't need any support. And just like your father, my daughter is an OBGYN.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you, Demir Bey. Does anyone else have, I mean, we had a couple more questions we had like kind of submitted, but I just wanted, first of all, obviously the people that made it here, I'd like to make sure they get a chance to ask their questions first. And everyone can unmute themselves at this point. I just wanted to make sure we had our main speech uninterrupted, but any questions from anyone else? Oh, sorry, Erim, you look like you were about to make a comment.
Yes, I was about to comment that Sema Hanım here, Sema Kızılışık, has actually known me since I was a young boy. Miss Kızılışık now lives in Nashville, and Sema Hanım nasılsınız?
Çok teşekkürler. Thank you, Erim'cim. I'm so thrilled and proud of you. The way, yeah, exactly. I know you when you were a little boy.
That's
with
right.
Parents, you guys grow up with my daughter, and I follow your achievements, which they all make me so proud. And I know you're gonna get there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You honor me with your support, ma'am.
Absolutely, always.
Thank you all. But I just wanted to mention that, it's been a great honor connecting with the Turkish American community. My day-to-day life, I'm a trench fighter. I do something like I have 120 open felony cases at any given time. My world is defined by the parameters of the courthouse and courtrooms. My fun is coaching mock trial and looking at art. And now my beautiful baby boy. And so I have, in many ways, I love my job. I love the position that I'm running for, and I'm running for it because I really do believe that we need to invest our effort into public service. Public service isn't, just a label that you're elected to. It requires continuous effort, commitment, some sort of honor and respect for honoring the citizens with good work. But anyhow, don't let me get on my soapbox too much. If you can't tell, I've been on the campaign trail. So
Thank you so much. And actually, so one of our questions from someone I couldn't make it, which is why actually they really wanted us to record it so we can make sure that we send it to our listers and everything and for it. And so she was asking about, like, I guess law school choices, essentially, kind of law school advice. I mean, and I think that's very important for especially people in like the TAP group. There are a lot of people, like college students, that are looking into graduate programs, and especially law school. I know it's been, I think, in a lot of, actually, at least I know Georgetown Law School. I mean, granted, we both didn't go there, but I know Georgetown Law School had the most applications that they've ever had, and like, I think on record or something. I think that I heard. I heard something. Well, it's just, I think all law schools have just had record number of law school applications.
Mhm.
But what kind of advice can you give? Like, I guess one is like, what made you decide to go to law school at that point? How did you narrow down the choices? How did you get, before then? I think that would be helpful for people.
Sure. I was very lucky in that I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be a lawyer, because I've actually only ever wanted to be two things in my life, and I won't spend long on this story. Before I got these glasses, I was obsessed with becoming a fighter pilot. The day I got the glasses, the next day, my school did a mock trial in elementary school, 5th grade. And I did so well, I thought to myself, well, if I can't be a fighter pilot, I guess I'll be a lawyer. And so ever since then, I knew I wanted to go to law school. How I chose my law school, though, was with an international lens, because I thought I had always wanted to do international public law or some sort of international work. My advice to young people and students applying to law school: the label is important. I think a top 14 school, T14 as it's called, enables a student or a graduate to have national employability. Otherwise, you need to focus on a school at a location where you would be happy to live for the rest of your life. Because each school is going to start connecting you into the legal network of that city, or at least that region. So I think that's a very important consideration. If you're not in the top 14 sort of running, then that's a-okay. The top tier running of top 50, you need to start thinking about, what region do I really want to live in? And that's why I chose Tulane, because Tulane for me is one of the best international maritime law programs around. And I thought maritime law, especially with my background in the outer space industry, maritime law would be the most applicable international law. And I do think that's true. I think international transactional work is the most common role in international law you can practice as an American attorney. I think international public law is so rare and competitive because you're competing with students on a global scale. It's very hard to snatch those few spots. I would urge to become a specialist in something, or to go to a university that's known for something. Because even though I didn't graduate Tulane Law School with a certificate in maritime law, people still approach my Tulane law label as international. That's also because, I chose Tulane not just for the maritime, but also because of the Napoleonic Civil Code that Louisiana does. We are not educated in that at Tulane. You choose to take courses in that. But that helped me very much in my practice at the United Nations, because the French style is actually much more applicable to the International Criminal Tribunal level. It's a hybrid common civil law system, which, as I'm sure the students have gone through. But that's my biggest piece of advice on law school selection. Top 14, you have national opportunities, because wherever you go, they'll know your school. Otherwise, top tier, there are a few schools that are known for specific things, but beyond that, focus on a region that you would be happy to live in. I think that is something that most students don't appreciate, because our generation, we do move so often. But as a lawyer, you won't be able to, likely, because of your bar certification requirements. And so this is I used to call it the last big move. The last big move is right after law school or right before it. And those are actually closely related, more closely related than I appreciated when I was applying to law school.
Yeah, I can wholeheartedly agree with that. I always tell people, at least for me too, sometimes I haphazardly went into law school. And one thing I always tell people is like, just like, if you have any specialization you think you're going to have, like, go for that. I didn't know until halfway into it that I wanted to do public international law. Wouldn't have changed much of what I did, but it does help to not let the road be so rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, in law school, I also learned, I didn't know there were that many kinds of law. Stocks, environmental, gender, animal. I didn't even appreciate that, because I had always thought I was a mock trial guy and, just get me into a courtroom. But, and that's kind of how I ended up in criminal practice as well. I will add, I obviously was interested in criminal work through my experience, but also criminal work is the most likely that you will try cases. And I focused my legal career on the skill sets that I knew I was strongest in. I am not a strong transactional analytical person, for example. I appreciate my strength. My strength is speaking to people. And the way I can do that is by speaking to juries. And so do go to that field of law that pumps you up in your capability. Don't feel so bad. When we were at Georgetown, everybody was trying to become a banker. I thought that was a good idea too for a short second, but that wasn't in my natural skill set. I would never have truly been successful. Forget happy. I would never have really been successful. And I think you need to lean into what you know you're strong in. And don't be shy of it. I know it's not as easy to self-identify what we're strong in sometimes. I think that's sometimes the challenge that we have with ourselves. And in that way, listen to your mentors. Take their advice genuinely. They're not there to just pump you up. They will tell you the truth if you ask it of them. And so I think that's the biggest thing a mentorship can give you, those honest truths.
Thank you for that. And so we might have room for one, maybe two questions, but any questions from anyone? One more question. I think we're good on time. I wanted to make sure I didn't have anything else I wanted to ask myself, but I think I think I like this one too. One more for you, and then we'll what can you tell us about a memorable case in your career so far, and what that you kind of lean back to?
Sure. I've had a few memorable cases in my career, I must admit, but as a public defender, I don't want to shock people. Many of the cases that I'm in that are most memorable for me are very difficult cases. As a public defender, you often represent cases that are, truly difficult to comprehend, such as child sexual assaults or things like that. Private attorneys don't take those cases often, and so we represent the cases of those that are still in jail. One of my proudest moments, though, is having gained an acquittal of not guilty for someone charged in that situation. And I'm just very proud in that the jury was able to see some truth and could put aside the allegation. But beyond specific cases, as a public defender, I've been really honored, and I'm sure it's true on the prosecution as well. We take responsibility for people's lives. And it's an honor to take someone's life into your own hands. Doctors do it too. And, I have had the honor of changing some lives. I touch maybe 1,000 lives a year through my volume of caseload, probably more. But in that 1,000, any given year, I might find 5 or 10 clients who I know their life changed with not just my work, but just any public defender giving honest work. I don't think it's about ego. I think it's about just giving honest work and honoring your responsibilities. I think before I get too far off track about, what's your most memorable case, there are no memorable cases. There are many memorable cases, but what's memorable about them isn't the cases. What's memorable about them is what happened to those defendants and those families after the case. I think that's what, you can take pride in as a defense attorney or even a prosecutor if you're representing a victim, because life goes on beyond the case. And if that person is a little better, a little further along in their road to recovery from addiction, or a little more self-aware of their mental health issue, or those are the sort of victories that are unquantifiable. And, you also have opportunities for systemic change sometimes. For example, I'm very proud of my work in Memphis, Tennessee. Like many large cities in America, we had a rape kit backlog crisis where 12,000 rape kits went ignored over a 15-year period here in Memphis. There's a great HBO special called I Am Evidence that chronicles this happening in Los Angeles, Cleveland, many larger metropolitan areas. But being able to engage in these sort of problems is really what makes me proud sometimes, not just through the work we do, but just to be trusted to, once you do get that bar, you are an attorney and people look to you with trust and respect. And as long as you honor your responsibilities, I think, people only grow in what they see in you about that. Sorry if I got my words jumbled there, but I think you know what I mean. I just, being a lawyer is a privilege, and you can change people's lives directly. And not just directly, you can change whole systems if you put enough effort into it, with enough studying and enough passion. I'm not saying that I've changed the world, I haven't, but I try. And that's what's more important. It's the continuous trying.
Thank you so much, Erim. I mean, that was a great conclusion in general, but I mean, did you want to add any? I mean, that was great. And I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
No, I guess I could just point people to our website.
Yeah.
Vote ShelbyCountyJudge.com.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I did add. So I didn't add it to the link, but what we'll do is when we actually send it out, we can add that in the blurb as well. Kind of the link. Then maybe I will send, I'll send you his email. We had talked about Lincoln earlier. I think it would be remiss not to mention Lincoln in general, because I mean, right, without TCA, there wouldn't have been TAP, without, and just, even getting you connected with everyone more. I mean, Lincoln's always been a key, and he did say, he did message me earlier saying he had a scheduled conflict, couldn't make it, but he wished us a great event, which I thought was a great event. And yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And Erim, I hope to, if you're in DC, and we can definitely schedule an event around you, tap event around you. So that'd be great to see
everyone. Thank you so much. You really honor me with your time. When Lawrence asked me to do this, I thought to myself, why would anyone be interested to listen to me? But it's really a pleasure to speak to y'all. And these small little nuggets you pick up along the way, I'm happy to share.
Amen. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening. And Erim, yes, and good luck. We will be.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're rooting for you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. İyi akşamlar size.